I'm Tony Barker. I'm 80 years old. I was born in 1944 and I was born to an unmarried mother, so that's one of my burdens. I was also brought up in the Catholic faith and I'm a gay man. Being brought up a Catholic and discovering one's gay is very confusing, but I learnt about gayness and homosexuality through reading, which helped me immensely. I came out in 1971 when I was 27. Previous to that, it was just theoretical, and this was now the actual step of introducing myself as a gay man to another person who was also gay.
Who were they?
These were in a drama group in Beeston, an amateur drama group, and he was very much younger than me, and he'd already accepted himself, whereas here I was struggling.
What did that feel like for you?
A relief, actually. Although I'm of a generation, I sort of like to think of myself as a generation in between those who never told anybody. I've told somebody, but I'm not telling everybody. And then the people after me who were quite more open about it. I'm talking about my own personal situation here.
Yeah.
So when I came out, I wanted to meet people. In Nottingham, there was a group called the Campaign for Homosexual Equality, which came out of a group in the Northwest called Northwest Campaign for Homosexual Equality. And I wrote to the person involved, who was called Ike Cowen, who did a lot of legal work for this campaign. And he came round to my door and I hid in the kitchen because I was so afraid of actually taking that last step. But he did come round again and we got talking, and I became a member of CHE local group. And we met for social events in A Street off the Arboretum. And I must also say, at that time, I was splitting my social and my sexual side because I was cottaging, cruising 4 sets. And it wasn't later until I amalgamated the two. Right. I was a member of the CHE, the Campaign for Homosexual Equality, and during that time there was an alternative advice centre set up on Mansfield Road called the People's Centre, and a gay man called Howard Hyman set up a once a week helpline. People could come in and ask questions and get with their problems and get advice. This went on for some time, and this was in 1974, I should add. Later that year, or during that year, perhaps before, London Switchboard had been developed, and also Brighton Switchboard. We were calling ourselves just the People's Centre Helpline. We then moved next door into what was the home of the Nottingham Council for Voluntary Service, the NCVS, who have been very helpful to us over the many years of Switchboards. And there the phone line became more formal. There was no training whatsoever. We were all amateurs. We had a telephone line which lent to us by the CVS, and we answered the calls, and we were answering really from our own experience. So that was the start. I think we did it because other people were doing it, and there were a lot of people who didn't know about us, about what was happening on the gay scene.
So I suppose you saw that they could do it in London and Brighton, why can't we do it here?
Yeah.
Yeah. That must have been really difficult as well, from doing it from your own experience without that training, but also I suppose you were just connecting like human to
That's
human.
right. That's right. Yeah.
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 And there was a social feeling to the meetings. I do remember, and I may be mistaken in this, but we had 2 rooms and people gathered in one, but the phone was in another one. So we had to be quiet when the phone rang, which wasn't good for confidentiality, which in those days.
But I suppose you had to make do with the space that you had.
Yeah, we had no money. Our money came from one donor who gave us £5 every week or every month, and from the sale of gay news, because to relieve isolation in those days we had 3 options. There were the clubs and the pubs, which I think you knew more about by word of mouth. There were publications like Gay News, which started in 1972 and which I subscribed to and I have the whole set at home still, minus 1 copy I think. And then there was helplines. So there were 3 ways to cover your isolation.
What was the reaction of the Nottingham LGBT community about this, and also like the wider community?
The wider community were not very happy. We did try to advertise in the Nottingham Evening Post, but they refused. And it wasn't until 1976, by which time we'd started calling ourselves Gay Switchboard. We started calling ourselves at about 1975. Gay Switchboard, mainly men, because a lesbian switchboard, a lesbian helpline had also been started. But by 1976 or 7, they did accept our advert. We got some nasty replies from councillors. As for the gay community, we had a lot of calls. We were surprised at the number that we were getting. And as a result of that, we expanded our records, because we don't have a database, no computers in those days. And we only had the minimum information, which we got from the back of Gay News, because they had a list of all the pubs and clubs and groups in the towns all over England and the UK. When we were when I was a member of the Campaign for Homosexual Equality, we went out to people. We were getting them to face us as ordinary people. And there was a group called the National Housewives Register. And I do remember going with other members of the CHE group, the local CHE group, to talk to these women in their homes, and it was fantastic. You know, we don't have horns, you know, we're ordinary members of the public, and that was their first introduction. Now the wider public, seeing the words homosexual, lesbian in print, oh, don't like that, we can't have that in our local newspaper. But eventually they came round to it, grudgingly. And we weren't thinking in terms of LGBTQ+ then.
No, it was just...
It was gay men and lesbians, even bisexuals weren't in our title even. Yeah. And the trans community, interestingly, was transvestites, which is a word I'm sure not used now, but we had a number of calls from people cross-dressing, and we said, well, if you ring back, we may be able to start a group perhaps. And a group was started, which is still going, the Chameleon Group.
And are you surprised about like the ongoing success of the network?
Our plans were to increase our database, in fact, and it was mainly on record cards. So although we had the back of Gay News, we wanted more local information, so we had accommodation files, we had local solicitors and all that. This wasn't developed straight away, it grew over the years. So that was the major thing. And then we developed our own little computer system, and now we have Ike Cowen in our own office. And in those days we were having an office based in NCVS, who've been very helpful to us over the years, as I said. So we moved with them, and now we have our own office, which we're paying for ourselves. Mm.
Do you know how many like volunteers and members there are now? Do you know?
About 25 plus. And obviously, developing the group, we had no training programme, and we developed a training programme along with a group calling itself Friend. This is where it gets a bit complicated, because Friend was a counselling group growing out of CHE, and with them we created our own training programme. So in this building on Mansfield Road, we had Gay Switchboard upstairs and Friend in the basement. They were mainly counselling. We don't do counselling. Having said that, we did invite people, if they wanted to meet with other gays, we did invite them into the office. Now we don't do that now, but we did then. And I remember one person who came and we chatted, and he was coming out, and about 4 or 5 years later he joined the switchboard.
There you go. It's just that, it's that community,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't know who we've helped over the years, and we hope we've helped some people find their peace.
Good. Looking back on the last 50 years, what are you most proud of?
Of its existence. Proud of the volunteers who've joined us over the years, which have kept the switchboard going. Proud of what it's come out of it, like the Chameleon Group, like Rainbow Heritage, which was is a history group that was enabled by the National Lottery, and just being there for the community in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire.
Yeah.
The best memory is of my own growth within it. That's my memory of it, that I grew up with it, because we were both taking steps, tentative steps at the same time. And that's what I'll appreciate the switchboard doing for me personally.